All right, guys. Well, it's Coach Blue here. Let's call this the Blue Zone. Really excited to get into conversation about the hip angle and why that's an important identifier as to running with a more dynamic range of motion in the running stride, and why that's important and why that makes you a faster runner. Essentially, the hip angle just measures the angle from hip to knee, and hip to knee, the angle between the two legs, the upper legs. The more obtuse the hip angle, the greater the stride length. And really, it more identifies the range of motion, like the cycle that is the running stride, is much more dynamic. It has much greater range of motion. And that's really the most important piece of it, because that greater range of motion is responsible for a lot of things. One being that when the foot comes closer to the butt after toe off, the next thing that happens is that leg swings through. We call that the swing phase of the stride. If that heel in the foot on that back leg is really close to the butt, it swings through with much more ease, and therefore ends up with a stronger knee drive and a more extreme knee drive. Again, this is all part of this more dynamic range of motion. As that knee drives forward further, it ends up putting that foot higher from the ground than it would have been if the foot would have swung lower. And we actually use an identifier that the swing leg foot should pass over the standing leg at the knee, as opposed to down across the shin. Now, that's when that front foot is higher off the ground. What we call that is it's a potential for power, because essentially what's going to happen is the next thing that happens is the glute together with the muscles in the upper legs all fire simultaneously. We call it triple extension, and it fires that leg like a piston into the ground. It creates power, or with power it creates force. The force into the ground is what propels that body through the air. Okay, so a greater force applied, the greater potential for force, and then therefore the greater force applied ultimately ends in the greater velocity, which propels the body further through space, which means per time you're taking a step, your body is flying through space to a greater extent. So all of these things add to a faster runner. Now, the key to this is, in order to really get away with this and be important in something like a marathon or 10K or whatever your race is, you need to be efficient at creating that faster pace. And so that power output has to come with efficiency. So what we're learning to achieve through training is essentially to get that body firing with a great range of motion, explosively, powerfully, and doing it efficiently, so that the cost of energy isn't too high. And originally, when you're trying to create more power and force, it's going to take more energy, and it naturally does take more energy. But the more you do it, the more you actually are able to do with less cost of energy, therefore being more efficient. So at the end of the day, if your heart rate is the same or similar to what it was before, but your range of motion is greater and your power output is greater, that athlete is going to be faster at the same heart rate. And that is where magic happens.